I want you to close your eyes for a second. Imagine you are standing in the middle of a desert or maybe the coast of a developing nation, and towering over you is a mega project. We are talking a chemical plant, maybe a power station that costs maybe $4 billion.
Mhm.
You see miles of chrome piping, cooling towers scraping the clouds, thousands of tons of concrete. It is an absolute beast of engineering.
It's the kind of thing that makes you feel very small very quickly.
Exactly. And usually when we look at these things, we think about the engineers, the architects, the guys in the hard hats. But today, we are doing something a little different. We are going to ignore the steel beams.
For now.
For now. We are going to look at the invisible architecture, the massive, tangled web of legal agreements that keeps this billion-dollar structure from collapsing under its own financial weight.
And honestly, that invisible architecture is often more complex than the piping itself. Before a single shovel hits the dirt, there's a mountain of paperwork that, it defines reality for everyone involved.
And we have that paperwork in front of us. We're doing a deep dive into an EPC contract that stands for Engineering, Procurement, and Construction based on the FIDIC Yellow Book 2017. But we aren't just looking at the standard rules, we're looking at the particular conditions.
Right, and for those who aren't contract lawyers, particular conditions is where the real game is played. The FIDIC Yellow Book, that's the template, the standard rules. The particular conditions are where the lawyers sit down and carve out the specific high-stakes rules for this particular deal.
We've got a stack here that includes financing agreements, parent company guarantees, safety packs, and my personal favorite, the direct agreement.
Oh, we will definitely get to the direct agreement. That is the nuclear option.
But first, I want to set the stage. Our mission today is to decode how you balance billions of dollars, immense technical risk, and international law on a knife edge. Because as I read through this, I realized this isn't just a contract between two people, it's a three-way standoff.
A Mexican standoff, yeah.
You have the employer, the one buying the plant. You have the contractor, the poor soul building it. And then you have the lenders.
The banks. And let's be clear right up front. In the modern world of mega projects, the banks are the ones holding the gravity. They warp everything around them.
Well, let's follow the money then, because this is where I first got a bit confused. Usually if I hire a contractor to renovate my kitchen, I pay them for my savings or a loan I took out.
Yeah.
It's my business. But in particular conditions B special provisions, I kept seeing references to these things called ECAs.
Right, export credit agencies.
What on earth is an export credit agency doing in the middle of a construction contract?
Okay, so think about the scale here. You are building a massive infrastructure project in a potentially unstable part of the world. Commercial banks, your JP Morgans or your HSBCs, they're risk averse. They don't like lending $3 billion on a maybe. They want insurance.
And that's where the ECA comes in.
Exactly. These are government-backed agencies. You have U.S. Exim in the States, UK Export Finance in Britain, SCE in Italy. They exist to support their national industries. So they tell the commercial banks, look, if this project goes bust, we will cover a chunk of the loss.
Okay, so it's a government safety net. But I'm guessing that free lunch comes with a bill.
It comes with massive strings attached. If the Italian government is backing the loan, they don't want you spending that money in Germany. They want you spending it in Italy.
And that's what I saw in Clause 4.24, the ECA credit table. It looked like a shopping list.
It is a mandatory shopping list. It dictates that the contractor must source specific materials and goods from specific countries to, ensure the project remains eligible for that cheap financing.
So the contractor can't just go out and find the best valve for the best price.
No. They have to find the best valve from the country on the list, and they have to track these things called minimum total amounts. It effectively turns the contractor's procurement department into a compliance arm for the bank.
And what happens if they mess up? Say the procurement guy finds a great deal on steel from a country that isn't on the list, buys it, and voids the ECA cover.
That is the nightmare scenario. Clause 4.24D is brutal. If the contractor's actions cause the ECA financing to fall through, the employer can just withhold money from a contract price equal to the lost finance cover.
Wow. So the contractor is essentially personally guaranteeing the employer's loan interest rates.
In a way, yes. It connects the guy pouring concrete directly to global finance treaties. But if you think that's pressure, we need to talk about the direct agreement.
I highlighted this one in red. This is the tri-party agreement between the contractor, the employer, and the security agent.
The security agent is basically the bouncer for the lenders.
To me, this document read like a prenup for a marriage that hasn't even happened yet, assuming the worst possible divorce. It seems to anticipate the employer going broke.
It absolutely anticipates the project failing financially. You have to understand the fear here. The contractor is afraid they'll build half a plant and the employer will run out of cash to pay them. But the bank is terrified the employer will default, the contractor will walk away, and the bank will be left owning a half-built, rusting pile of scrap metal that generates zero revenue.
So the direct agreement is the bank's insurance policy.
It's more than insurance. It's a coup d'etat waiting to happen. Look at Clause 5.1, the step-in.
The step-in notice.
Right. If the employer defaults, maybe they miss a loan payment or they breach some covenant, the security agent can issue a step-in notice, and essentially, the bank or someone they appoint steps into the shoes of the employer.
So overnight, the contractor isn't working for the client they signed the deal with. They're working for the bank.
Or a nominee the bank chooses.
Yeah.
They basically seize control of the contract to keep the project alive.
But here's the part that terrified me for the contractor. Clause 4.1, the suspension of remedies. If the employer stops paying me, usually I'd say, I'm stopping work and I'm suing you. But this says I can't.
Correct. You cannot terminate the contract immediately. You are legally frozen. You have to give the banks a cure period to try and fix the mess or find a new buyer.
And that cure period isn't a week. It's up to 120 days, extendable to 180 days.
That's 6 months.
You're telling me a contractor might have to keep their workforce mobilized, potentially not getting paid, for 6 months just to see if the bank can save the deal.
That is the price of admission for these mega projects. The asset, the plant itself, is more important than the people building it. The banks ensure that the project is too big to just walk away from.
That is a sobering power dynamic. So let's assume the financing holds together. The banks are happy. Now we actually have to build the thing. And looking at the performance requirements, it became clear to me that finishing the job is a lot harder than just tightening the last bolt.
Oh, absolutely. Mechanical completion, which is just building it, that's just the warm-up act. The main event is Clause 2.1, the performance test.
This is the 72-hour run.
A continuous 72-hour run. And I want to emphasize continuous. This isn't just turning it on and seeing if the lights flicker. It has to run on a guaranteed case basis.
Meaning full design capacity.
Fuel capacity, design conditions, producing the exact product qualities specified in the contract. It's a massive stress test.
And what happens if there's a glitch? Say at hour 71, a sensor trips, a valve sticks, and the plant shuts down for 10 minutes.
Clause 2.3 is unforgiving. The clock resets. You go back to minute 1.
You're kidding. You don't just pause and resume?
No. The requirement is 72 continuous hours. If you fail at hour 71, you start over.
I can only imagine the tension in the control room at hour 70.
It's immense. It's psychological warfare. And it's not just about keeping it running. Clause 2.4 puts a hard cap on power consumption.
I saw that. Guaranteed power consumption.
Right. It's not enough to produce the chemicals or the electricity. You have to do it efficiently. If the plant works, but it sucks up 10% more electricity than you promised, you have failed the test.
And failure costs money. This brings us to liquidated damages, or LDs. I hear this term a lot. How does it work here?
Think of liquidated damages as mathematically defined pain. Instead of going to court to argue about how much money the employer lost because the plant is inefficient, they agree up front. For every 1% you miss the production target, you owe us, say, $5 million.
So it's a menu of fines. The contractor can basically buy their way out of a slightly imperfect job. Here's the fine, I'm leaving.
Only up to a point, and this is where the contractor really starts sweating. Look at Clause 5.2, the rework clause. There's usually a threshold, let's say 5%, if your shortfall is worse than 5%.
The employer can refuse the money.
Exactly. They can say, keep your check. We don't want the penalty. We want the plant we ordered.
And then what?
Then the contractor has to perform rework at their own cost until the plant meets the standard.
Rework sounds like a polite corporate euphemism for tearing things down.
It is. We are talking about ripping out piping, replacing massive turbines, pouring new concrete. Imagine having spent 4 years and $1 billion building a facility and then being told you have to spend another $100 million fixing it because you missed the efficiency target by 6%. That is the risk profile these companies are dealing with.
It really explains why engineering on these projects is so conservative. You don't take risks when rework is on the table.
Precisely. You stick to what you know works. And just to add one more hurdle, they also have to prove turn-down capabilities. That's in Clause 4.3.
That's the ability to run at low capacity.
Yes. It's easy to drive a car fast. It's actually quite hard to drive a Formula One car at 10 miles an hour without it stalling. Industrial plants are the same. They have to prove they can run stable at 40 or 50% load immediately after startup.
Okay, so we have the banks breathing down their necks with the step-in rights, and we have a high-stakes exam at the end with the performance test. Let's look at how the contractor actually gets paid. Because Clause 14.4 describes a payment structure that seems, well, let's call it stingy.
It's designed to be stingy. It's a split structure. You get 70% of your money via progress payments. That's paid monthly based on the physical work you actually did. But the other 30%, that is locked behind milestones.
So you don't get that cash until you hit a specific goal, like foundation complete or turbine delivered.
Correct. And this ties into the concept of cash neutrality mentioned in the source notes.
I want to dig into that. Cash neutrality. It sounds like something an accountant made up to sound smart.
It's actually a defense mechanism for the employer. You see, contractors love to front-load a project. They want to get paid as much as possible, as early as possible to help their cash flow. They want to be holding the client's money before they've done the work.
Like asking for a 15% deposit before you even pick up a paintbrush.
Exactly. But on a billion-dollar scale, that's risky for the employer. Cash neutrality means the employer pays strictly as value is created. You don't get paid for the groceries until they're in the fridge.
And I saw there's actually a formula for this. In Clause 14.4.
Yes, the tolerance formula. It's algorithmic. If the contractor says, we plan to be 50% done by June, and they invoice for that, but the auditor sees they are only 40% done, the formula automatically adjusts the payment downward.
That's self-correcting.
It realigns the cash flow to the physical reality. It prevents the employer from accidentally financing a slow contractor.
It feels like every clause in here is an attempt to remove trust from the equation and replace it with math.
That is the essence of modern contracting. Trust is nice. Algorithms are enforceable.
So what happens when things go wrong? I mean, really wrong. We're talking about liability. Who is left holding the bag?
This is where we get into the safety nets. And the first line of defense is the parent company guarantee.
This is basically asking for a cosigner, right?
It is, because often the contractor isn't the giant multinational you see on the news. It's a local subsidiary created just for this project, Megacorp Nigeria Limited. If that subsidiary goes bust, the employer is out of luck. So they demand the ultimate parent steps in.
And Clause 2.1 says the parent indemnifies the employer against any failure of the contractor. It pierces the corporate veil.
It does. But my favorite part of the stack is the form of legal opinion.
I laughed at that one. It's a lawyer formally certifying that the company actually exists.
It sounds ridiculous, doesn't it? But imagine the nightmare scenario. The plant blows up, you go to sue the parent company, and you find out it's a shell company in the Cayman Islands that can't be sued in your jurisdiction.
So this legal opinion is a lawyer putting their professional reputation on the line to say, yes, this company is real, it has the power to sign, and yes, you can sue them.
It's essential due diligence. But speaking of things blowing up, hopefully metaphorically, but sometimes literally, we have to talk about the mutual hold harmless agreement.
This one baffled me. I've heard it called knock for knock.
It's standard in oil, gas, and heavy industry, but it is completely counterintuitive to the average person.
Right, because usually if you break my window, you pay for it. If your negligence causes damage, you're liable. But this agreement seems to say the opposite.
Clause 2.1 states that each signatory employer, contractor, subcontractor accepts liability for their own people and their own property, regardless of who was negligent.
So let me get this straight. If the employer's crane operator shows up drunk, swings a crane around, and smashes the contractor's brand new truck, the contractor pays for the truck.
Correct. The contractor pays for their truck, and the employer pays for their dented crane.
Why on earth would anyone agree to that? It sounds like it rewards negligence.
It's not about rewarding negligence. It's about preventing litigation paralysis. Think about a construction site. You have 5,000 workers, 50 different companies, heavy machinery everywhere. Accidents happen. If you rely on standard fault-based law, every time someone scratches a bumper, every single company will sue every other company to prove whose fault it was.
The project would drown in lawsuits.
Exactly. It would stop for 5 years of court battles. So knock for knock is basically saying, life is dangerous, insure your own stuff. If your guy gets hurt, you handle it. If my guy gets hurt, I handle it. Now let's get back to work.
It's about efficiency over justice, in a way.
Efficiency is the justice of the construction site. And that's why you see a waiver of subrogation. That stops the insurance companies from suing each other behind the scenes. It seals the deal tight.
We're coming up on time, but I want to touch on what I call operational hygiene, the stuff that cleans up the mess at the boundaries. Source C0.7 covers novation.
Novation is just a fancy word for transferring a contract.
But the context here is interesting. It talks about the employer buying things before the contractor is even hired.
They have to. Some things, like massive gas turbines, have a 3-year lead time. If you wait until you hire the main contractor to order them, your project is already 3 years late, so the employer orders them early.
But once the contractor arrives, the employer doesn't want to manage that turbine order anymore.
Exactly. So they use novation to transfer the supply contract from the employer to the contractor. Clause 2.1 essentially says the contractor steps into the employer's shoes. It's like adopting a teenager.
Yeah.
You take responsibility for everything they do and everything they've done before you got there.
Here, you deal with it. If the turbine is a lemon, it's your problem now.
Pretty much. And finally, we have the secrecy agreement.
Which seems stricter than your average NDA.
Much stricter. It defines employer information very broadly, but the real sting is in Clause 4.3, referencing U.S. export controls.
That's the long arm of the law.
It is. Even if contract ends, those U.S. regulations survive. If you're dealing with sensitive technology, maybe a specific refining process, you can't just take your learnings and build a plant for a competitor in a sanctioned country.
So you aren't just violating a contract, you're violating federal law.
Exactly. It's a zombie clause. It lives on long after the project is finished.
So when we step back and look at this stack of paper, this invisible architecture, what are we actually seeing?
We are seeing a mechanism designed for resilience. The whole system is built to absorb shock. The banks control the lifeline through the direct agreement to survive financial shock. The parent guarantees absorb the shock of bankruptcy. The knock-for-knock absorbs the shock of accidents. And the performance tests ensure the thing actually works.
It really explains why these projects are so slow to start. You have to negotiate this entire web before you can dig a hole.
But it also explains why they are so hard to stop once they are signed. The deal is a rigid, interconnected web of thousands of obligations. Once that ink is dry, the machine starts moving, and it is incredibly expensive to turn it off.
It changes how you look at a skyline. You see the towers, but now I'm seeing the clauses holding them up.
Then our job here is done.
Before we wrap up, I want to leave you with a thought that struck me while reading the intro documents. We see the engineer, the employer, and the contractor. But given what you told us about the direct agreement, that the lenders can step in, appoint a nominee, and effectively seize the employer's rights.
It raises the ultimate question.
Exactly. While a mega project is being built, who really owns it? Is it the visionary company paying the invoices? Or is it the silent bank holding the leash?
I think we both know the answer to that one.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.
If you are interested in buying the templates, then please visit our shop. The link is in the description. Thanks for watching and see you next time.